week on Wednesday, and that's the only change that's been made to the roster as of February when the team launched. So we'll see how they perform. They played very well against Playing Ducks, and we are just waiting for these players to ban their first champion of, well, the first day, or rather the first day of the second week, which means the third day. But we are waiting for that first ban, and that will indeed be Yasuo, followed by Evelyn, a quick ban out by GAMERS2.
Yeah, pretty much Yasuo seems to always be banned pretty much in every game, but especially against GAMERS2. One of the things about their composition, the way their team is set up, is they're very versatile. JWoww is very happy to take a champion like Yasuo up into the top lane and use that as a bit more of a damage top laner, which, you know, isn't in the meta, but it's his comfortable pick. And we've seen that throughout the last year, maybe on JWoww. You see a lot of Jax Kha'Zix when it wasn't popular to play them.
Yeah, I mean, JWoww plays his own game. You know, he always goes with those damage top laners. Doesn't really matter what's going on in the meta, as long as he can play those champions well, which is another argument in itself. If you're really strong with a champion that's not in the meta, but you play it regardless, we saw Shook the other day pick up Riven, do that in 2 games and did exceptionally well. Maybe that is the new meta. There has been a change in junglers, but the next couple bans have come through. Caston, no small surprise. You make any change to that champion, and he keeps cropping up like a weed. You just can't get rid of Caston, followed by Ziggs and Gragas as the last ban from End Faculty.
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot of Gragas in the top lane. Ever since the rework, people thought, oh, maybe he's fallen out of favor. Maybe he's completely not a viable champion anymore. And then everybody remembers he's pretty tanky, has a lot of disruption, and has a good amount of sustain in lane as well. So we've seen a lot of Gragas in that top lane.
Yeah, we've seen different builds as well. In OGN, we've seen some Lichbane first item, which is differed to EU because we've seen a lot of Rod of Ages. So not everyone is going along the same path when it comes to the item builds, and definitely not going through the same train of thought. But the last ban coming out from GAMERS2 was Irelia. So looking for the first pick now. Coming out from End Faculty.
Yeah, so we're on live, so that's something to keep note of. The recent changes in the patch have gone through. That means there is quite a lot available.
Yeah, there is, including Lulu, which will be the first pick by End Faculty, putting a lot of thought into that, by which I mean they insta-locked it. I mean, they definitely wanted that one into their roster. So Lulu, again, does always well when the rest of the team is doing well. Isn't necessarily the playmaker by herself, but it's definitely setting up for something else. There's a lot of room to move with this one, and GAMERS2 picked up Nidalee and Lucian right out the gate.
Speaking of room to move, the Lucian changes that happened recently. A lot of people said, oh, we've nerfed Lucian. Turns out it wasn't quite a nerf, giving him extra cooldown on the movement ability, is E. Why can I not remember the name of it? That's
Relentless Pursuit.
Relentless Pursuit. I knew it was Pursuit.
Yeah, it is definitely relentless
it
now
is
as well.
now,
We never
yeah.
get away from it.
Man,
Yeah.
an interesting note about that is we've seen teams pick Lucian for a mid lane role recently as well. So typically you're playing that with something like a Kog'Maw, like a Caitlyn that is good at pushing. In fact, earlier today it was done in the game Unicorns of Love against NIP. So it has been done in Challenger already. So maybe expecting that out of GAMERS2, but Lucian's still a very strong champion.
Yeah, we'll have to see where he's actually thrown, though, because in the bot lane, he's very vulnerable to a lot of the AD carries because of that short range. Of course, he's very strong. You've mentioned his strengths in mid lane, but in laning phase, he can really be punished out. So we'll see if that is something that they choose to follow up on. But, of course, the Nidalee as well, which is now enabled, actually, in LCS. We haven't seen all that much of Nidalee. We did see one pick, but we did have those changes, of course, the rework onto Nidalee, which will definitely change some strategies. She's not as oppressive when it comes to those spears being like the main source of her damage, the main source of her strength, but at the same time she has different strengths, able to execute people very, very quickly. But next couple pickups of Elise and Braum. Braum again has seen a lot of play all over the world. In fact, OGN, North America, EU, all over the place.
Yeah, so has Elise. Seen a little bit of a change to Elise's playstyle ever since the changes to the Ancient Golem. Now a lot of Elise junglers are kind of preferring the Spectral Wraith kind of way. You go Spectral Wraith, a little bit more magic damage, and then tank at the end. It does have this kind of side effect of maybe making the team composition a little less tanky because Elise doesn't naturally get quite so tanky as she was before. So that's one thing we'll look at as End Faculty continue their picks and bans.
And 2 very fast lock-ins. Fresh as well will be going in the bot lane. So I would usually at this point say, oh, they've locked in their bot lane. We've got the Lucian, we've got the Fresh. But we don't actually know where it's going to be thrown because we've actually seen Nidalee in the top lane once again. You harken back to Season 2 and we had Bruiser Nidalee in the top lane, the AD Nidalee. So we don't actually know whether Lucian or Nidalee's going to be going in this game. But what's for certain is Lee Sin has been locked in, and the Cogmore from Sedrian from in faculty.
Yeah, indeed. You've seen a lot of Lee Sin just everywhere, pretty much. He's so strong right now, one of the junglers that just every jungler is picking, so nothing all that surprising. Same with Cogmore. Ever since he came back into the meta a patch or two ago, has pretty much just found that comfortable spot in that bottom lane. But typically you need that kind of protection composition. You see the Lulu, which, if they do end up going through with this, may look like a mid Lulu.
Interesting. They are still swapping through a multitude of different champions. In fact, they will just settle on Orianna. So I think that kind of solves our query on that one, Stress.
Yeah, I'm a little happier with the Orianna than seeing the Yorick there. I mean, Yorick pretty much is a champion that only Europe are playing right now, and really hasn't had the success that the pick rate is kind of warranting. I believe he's only won maybe two of the actual LCS games that he's been picked in. So it's a very low win rate champion, but does provide that role of giving you, the Cogmore coming back. But Orianna is a far more consistent champion, consistent in lane. Shockwave always will do the crowd control and always damage as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's always fun to watch a Yorick as well. It's a very entertaining lane to watch, has a lot of abilities in lane.
No, it's not an entertaining lane to watch, and it's not an entertaining lane to play.
No,
either.
or play against. It's actually a lot of players have not expressed their happiness in that role. However, we will be looking towards the last pick, and it may indeed be the Zera coming out. We saw 5 picks in EU alone with the Zera pickup. Froggen picked it up. We saw a couple other mid laners who escape my mind at the moment, but it's definitely been really strong. Saw it in OGN as well. Everyone's being picking up. It's basically flavor of the week and maybe even flavor of the month.
Yeah, it's another one of those champions that is pretty consistent. The only thing it can suffer against is heavy dive compositions. When you look at Faculty's team, really there's not that much dive. I mean, past Elise going in, from there it's mostly protection for Cogmore. So there's not all that much dive. But Xerath is a comfortable champion, very similar to Ziggs in lane, where you've got that longer range siege. So it's something we'll have to watch out for. Ocelot obviously has been mid lane forever, so I have a feeling Xerath probably has been played by him quite a lot and is very comfortable for him. So going up against Orianna, every lane tends to be somewhat of a skill lane. So Xerath against Orianna, I'm pretty sure we've seen that quite a few times in LCS already.
Yeah, absolutely. And that will mean that was a Nidalee top lane. So we are going back to that kind of bruiserish Nidalee. She'll have to go a little bit more tanky. We did see that in LCS. So we'll see how that works into this game. So they have actually quite a lot of poke available to their team. They've got Nidalee Spears, which aren't obviously as strong as they were before, but will be offering that poke. Then the Xerath as well. And you compared his kind of kit to Ziggs as well, and they are very, very similar.
Yeah, very similar. And I mean, you look at the siege potential, there's a couple of kind of nuances there that you have to look at. And as you said already, Nidalee in that top lane, pretty good at pushing, sieging when you look at it. Not only has that kind of little bits of poke damage, also is very comfortable in a situation where you can put her in a solo lane and then siege with the rest of the team. She's a very versatile champion right now. We've seen players like Zion Spartan playing Nidalee in that top lane position, and it's one of those champions that you have to be very comfortable on the champion. There's a lot to the kit, and AP Nidalee was a lot more straightforward. I kind of would like to say it. I don't want to say it was any easier, but AP Nidalee was just throw spears. Yeah. That's all you do.
It was kind of the same sort of thing as Blitzcrank. You land one spear, you land one hook, and it could potentially be game-changing. But now you kind of have to think a little bit more.
Yeah, the nuances are a little bit different. You've got to pick your engages because a lot of the damage is going to come from Cougar form as well. So that's another kind of balancing act that you have to play. And one thing to kind of look at is the effects that Nidalee will kind of cover for Lucian a little bit, because obviously Nidalee is pretty good for allowing that extra attack speed as well. So that's another thing to look at. Although Lucian's attack range getting nerfed may be a little bit significant as you look to siege.
Yeah, we've got to see how his laning phase actually shapes up, because we will have that in the bottom lane as all the picks have been locked in. He'll be also with Fresh. An opposing team, we've got the Braum as well, who is actually a very aggressive bot lane. Despite being like the defensive support, he's actually very, very aggressive, lands a good Winter's Bite, and then you'll be locked down in very, very quickly in an instant. But with relentless pursuit and being able to stick to targets and get away from targets, we'll see how he does. But as I have a goldfish memory, I have forgotten the rest of the picks from End Faculty, but we did just go through GAMERS2.
It's okay. We'll get to them. We'll mention that. But one thing we want you guys to do while we're in the last minute or so of the delay period, head over to all the necessary social media. You can see it there on your screen. Make sure you follow FACEIT on Twitter, also on the channel here. That always is a good, helpful thing to do because you'll get all of our content when we go live. And make sure you head over to FACEIT.com. That's probably the most important one, even more so than Twitter, because if you go to FACEIT.com, sign up, play in the leagues and ladders, you can win some pretty awesome prizes.
Yes, you can. So get on that, and we do have approximately another minute before we get into games, so we have plenty of time to head on over there and take a gander. But we'll be reminding you of that throughout the day, so don't worry if you missed that, then we will be talking about it later on today as well.
Yes, indeed. And, I'm kind of looking forward to this game now.
Yeah.
Now that we've got our picks and bans locked in, interested to see Lucian in an AD carry role or marksman role rather than the mid lane. Have seen quite a lot of Lucian mid lane recently. If you've been watching Challenger 5s or solo queue as well up in Challenger, and it's kind of difficult to deal with. So I wonder whether AD carry Lucian is going to have the same strengths, or whether the pitfalls maybe will be a little bit more apparent, because that was one of the things that the changes were meant to do, was to give him a little bit clearer strengths and weaknesses rather than just being all around good at everything.
Which is kind of what he's doing anyway at the moment.
Yeah, but I wonder in a situation where you're in a laning phase that's not so based on mana and ability poke and just more auto attack poke, especially against a champion like Kog'Maw, who obviously had the changes to his Bio-Arcane Barrage, now that it costs no mana, gives him the added range. I wonder how much of a kind of an advantage that'll give them over the now shorter attack range Lucian.
Well, we will be finding the answers to those questions when we actually get into the game. Because we do have a pause coming in. We did have some disconnects coming out from some of the players from GAMERS2, so do have some issues over there. We will get the information to you as fast as possible as we get it, but at the moment, we're just waiting for those players to reconnect.
Yeah, we had this last week. It seems like sometimes the first games of the day for GAMERS2 could be a little bit buggy. There's double reconnect going back on. 2 left, 2 are back, so hopefully that means we'll... Oh, no, there we go again.
Well, there you hear the disconnect sound, which means that we'll probably be waiting a little bit longer, but... yeah, I'm excited for these games. We only have 2 today, remember, but we do have 4 tomorrow, so we're making up for that. And then playing Ducks as well against Alternate at the end of the day. Alternate are in the tournament, playing Ducks are not. But interesting fact about playing Ducks, which you actually mentioned before we went live, is that they are at the very top of the rank ladder, and they were for quite a long time. But when it's come to actual tournaments, they really haven't performed as well as their accolades have kind of shown.
And it's interesting that you kind of bring that up, because I feel like that's one of the things with Challenger teams right now. And I kind of maybe want to hone in a little bit on GAMERS2 and their tournament performance, because they'll come out and win a tournament, just dominate it, won the tournament, and then they'll go quiet for a few months. And, I mean, from there, they don't exactly do too much other than some smaller tournaments here and there. And then they'll come back and be dominant again, and it looks like they're on that upswing once again.
Yeah, it's just like they kind of appear, and it's just like, whoa, they're actually really good as a team, and then they disappear again. But as we get into this game, we'll see how they face up against End Faculty. But anyway, guys, we are into this game. Finally, after that short pause, GAMERS2 on the purple side. It'll be End Faculty on the blue. I'll see how these guys come out into this game, how this all pans out. Everyone is fanning out into their jungles, but we may see a late invade. That's kind of what we've been seeing, and they have a lot of room to maneuver in the early game as well.
Yes, indeed they do. So, we are on to the Rift. Pronbear and JWoww kind of giving us the idea that it is going to be solo lanes in the top lane. Haven't seen too many lane swaps ever since the changes to the towers, changes to the dragon as well. So, looks like we're going to have a standard setup.
So I'm interested in how top lane is going to go, because Lulu is a very steady laner. She used to be an extreme lane bully as well, but now she's just kind of consistent. She won't really get pushed out of lane, and she can kind of gradually edge someone out of the lane as well. But Nidalee has the heal, Nidalee has the longer range poke. So see if it's going to be a farm fest top lane or more action's going to happen. And Nidalee does have Cougar form from level 1 now. That's another thing to mention.
Yeah, and that feels weird.
It does, yeah. It's
Just
like,
gonna be honest.
and she's got her ult at level 1. It doesn't
Yeah,
feel right.
it's one of those things that when you've been playing the game for so long, you really just get used to her not having that in the early game. And you think, okay, well, maybe I can kind of gank her early on-ish. She's still pretty mobile, but now she's a little bit more mobile, but of course does kind of suffer with that a little bit. They tweaked things around, took some of the damage away.
See how bot lane goes as well. So Cedrian sitting on the Cogmore has seen actually a lot of play in basically all scenes around the world. Again, EU, OGN as well, actually maybe picked up a little bit earlier, but it's definitely very strong. Late game, a lot of damage. The biggest thing about Cogmore is he doesn't have a solid escape, has the Voidoos of course, but is not going to be nearly as maneuverable as Yuki is on the Lucian, but laning phase you'd have to think would go Lucian's way.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of a fair assessment, or at least would have especially been a fair assessment before the nerfs or adjustments to Lucian. So it's one of the things we'll kind of have to look out for is how much that indeed has changed things. And speaking of changing things, I mean, when Braum was introduced to the game, everyone kind of felt that he was going to be the... We've seen him do fairly well, has a decent success rate, but certain lanes do give him a little bit of trouble. Thresh and Morgana specifically, their range gives Braum a little bit less of an easy time in lanes. So pair that with the Cogmore. It's one of those lanes that while it will protect Cogmore, it may struggle to get ahead.
Oh, from End Faculty, it's very much a composition which wants to protect the Cogmore. You've got the Orianna there, which is kind of to the latter parts of the game.
Yes, indeed. And, when we get to the latter point of the game, although Cogmore will have his strengths typically, that's why we've seen a lot of Cogmore against... a lot of Lee Sin against Cogmore because of just how good he is at engaging upon Cogmore. If you can get into the fight, insect him away from his team, then a lot of that protection is kind of redundant.
So Mordant is going for his jungle. Haven't seen any interaction from the jungles at the moment. And Elise and Lee Sin, as you actually mentioned in Champion Select Stress, kind of the top junglers at the moment. Lee Sin maybe being a little bit ahead of Elise. It was said in OGN that Lee Sin kind of falling off Elise is the champion to go to in the jungle. But Lee Sin actually showing that, you know, he's still top dog when it comes to that. Evelyn, of course, being the third of the holy trinity of junglers, and then when all those are banned out and not available, you go to kind of the next tier. Shook showing us that one in EU LCS. Ocelot taking some hits in the mid lane. Exurf comes into the battle, which is not a name that you associate with End Faculty, and I'm having to wonder whether that's a Smurf or is a sub coming into this tournament.
Yeah, that's one of those things that sometimes is a little difficult to keep on track of, but it's what I was alluding to earlier, is End Faculty's lineups haven't always been the most consistent. Oh, might have to be a little bit careful here, at least we'll get away.
Well, would have been in trouble had Morden connected the queue, but as he didn't, and probably wouldn't have been able to either way with the saplings being in the way, but either way, not a trade or a fight we're going to be seeing. Ryle does land a nice death sentence in the bot lane, but Mountain, very maneuverable, will be able to jump back to Cedric with Stand Behind Me. It's kind of a funny name when he's retreating to safety and saying, actually, you get in front of me on this one, Cogmore. You've got more hit points than me, but Mountain not going to be taken down in a hurry, that's for sure.
Yeah, indeed. And this is a bit of a slow start. Seen a lot of games start this way recently. I mean, in LCS we had that, what was it, 25, 26 minute game between Super Hot Crew and Fnatic. Ooh, hook in the bottom.
Again, lands onto Cedrian. Mountain this time does get the protection out. Winter's Bite lands onto Yuki, but in the top lane, J-Wild takes some damage. The flash forwards as well. One more auto attack from Brombear will secure the first blood. One more tower shot would have actually finished them off, but a clean 1-for-0.
Nearly getting taken out there in a 2v1. That would have been really good. However, both top laners now know Flash, and Elise used the Flash on that gank as well. So some pretty big summoners not being available, and here comes Morden.
A nice Q from Morden, lands and executes Promber. Now the teleport comes in from Jay while getting back into lane. Zerv will be trying to get out of this, but a Q to the back of the head secures a double kill from Morden.
And there's the problem with not having Flash, is that with a lot of top laners running teleport, if you stick around for too long, Morden's great positioning into the lane plus the teleport out from JWoww really meant that there was nowhere for Faculty to go.
So a nice 1-for-2 coming out. GAMERS2 picking up the very early advantage. Kind of the way that GAMERS2 playing Ducks played out was GAMERS2 picked up the early advantage and kind of just rolled that to a swift victory. And Faculty have not been the team who have suffered very early losses. Back in DreamHack, we saw them face down NIP. Second game actually did very well. But to feel that NIP maybe showboating a little bit, picked all their favorite champions. But Faculty showing that they're not a team who can just be messed around with. Promber takes some damage. The execute, the takedown comes out from Nidalee, offers some harassment. Spear comes through, but either if it hits, it's not going to be taking off the large chunks of health that we used to see from Nidalee guys.
Yeah, and that Sheen first just gives him that extra damage spike and makes it really difficult for Lulu to survive through a lot of it. And speaking of Lulu, they might have to be a little bit careful because up in this top lane, Morden is lying in wait, and here is his time to go.
Oh, he's looking for round 2, and he's got the kick available. Lands the Q, lands another Q. JWoww leaps forwards. There's the flash. There's the kick. Didn't even need to in-second back into JWoww. We'll just keep him in the face and say, job well done.
While I agree it's job well done, kind of want to be a little finicky here and say the flash, not sure whether it was 100% needed. Now, that's just me kind of really splitting hairs over this. But again, if we see him get caught in the next couple of minutes, it's just one more thing to exploit.
And he may not have even needed the ultimate either. JWoww was right on top of Lulu, had gotten the pounce to get into range, and Promber had already burnt his summoners. Will have the teleport, but that's not going to help you too much when you've got a Lee Sin right on your face. And Zoe, once again, maybe not the place he wants to be. The death sentence comes through. Repel comes up. Will be juking away from him, but the culling will be blocked out by Mountain. But the right of the arcane, the last barrage comes out, takes him down. Morden now all over the map comes into the next fight as well. Yuki going 1 versus 2, but now the cavalry has arrived. Rydell's there, the nice flash into the flay. Sigu now comes into the fight. Rydell will be dropping a 1-for-2 in favor of GAMERS2, but they are backing off. They are coming out second in this trade, but a 1-for-2, they run away and again come out ahead.
And overall, GAMERS2 landed a few nice ultimates there. When you look at Ocelot, landed all 3 procs of that Xerath ultimate. I mean, it's probably one of the more difficult ultimates to hit there. So, I mean, the one thing I will pick up on that is to begin that fight, there was a little bit of miscommunication, or at least Rydell kind of whiffed everything. He box, flay, hooked nothing at all from any of them. So that fight could have gone better for GAMERS2.
Did a Yellow Star.
Yeah.
Which is funny considering Yellow Star is actually performing incredibly well at the moment in LCS. Is arguably one of the best supports in Europe. So Rydell, as you mentioned before, influx of new supports, maybe looking to mimic those successes of some of the LCS supports. Kasing, of course, coming in for the Super Hot crew, one of the new additions, unknown to most, but has had his face shown in the UK scene. Ocelot in the mid lane, Sigu there just farming away. It's kind of been the story of mid laners. In fact, mid laners in general, we've seen some impressive farm totals being accrued by a lot of mid laners recently.
Yeah, it's been the split of broken records, just completely. And by that, I don't mean we've seen the same thing every game, although maybe some days we have. But those farm records have really been getting hammered in recent times. And top lane, the turret did fall, and you can see just how much pressure JWoww is putting out on the map here. And Nidalee seems to be a champion that certainly fits his kind of playstyle. A lot of damage comes out from Nidalee, a lot of mobility as well. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot more Nidalee out of JWoww.
And it's scary as well, because he's exerting enough pressure that it forced Elise to come into the top lane, go for the 1 versus 2, and then not want to go for the 1 versus 2, because 1, she can just escape, and 2, Morden might be around the corner. He's shown that time and time again in this match alone, so deciding better of it. And JWoww is quite happy to carry on pushing all day with basically no threat of a jungler coming around and knocking on his door.
Man, and you can see what that's doing to the CS levels. 96 currently to 63 on Lulu. And typically, Lulu has been picked as a very consistent champion in both the mid and top lane roles. Less so recently in the top lane, but still should keep that moniker of having that easy farm ability. Just very consistent in lane, and that's not what we're seeing here up against Nidalee.
Farm ability. It's a word now.
Yep.
So in the bot lane, nice Yuki and Rydell will pick up that one ward, but it's just been the ebb and flow of this game back and forth. GAMERS2 picking up a little bit more each time. Ocelot, though, has been caught in the mid lane. An Ice Flash will get him out of the way of the Shockwave. Zerv still follows up, though, looking for that last venomous bite. Will be finishing off. The auto attack, in fact, will be enough to claim the kill.
Oh man, Ocelot is going to be kicking himself because I believe the cooldown on Ghost is just due up. There it is. So that may have given him the escape, but Flash was expended to get away from the Shockwave. And that's a good pickup there for N-Faculty. Ocelot was starting to feel very comfortable in that middle lane, and you never want Ocelot completely on his game, because then we've seen him be one of those kind of world-class mid laners. You think back to SK's performance, or when Ocelot was on SK, back in previous World Finals. He's got a lot of experience, and if he's comfortable, he can still play to that kind of level.
Yeah. And back when SK was in its prime, but Mountain does jump forwards, lands a nice Winter's Bite onto Rydell, and the Voidoos will keep him in place. The concussor blows also make sure he's not going anywhere at all, and Elise once again walks into lane, pokes him in the face, picks up the kill.
N-Faculty is starting to pick up a lot from the lower side of the map here. They've need it, but they've been exerting so much pressure on the top side of the map that it's allowed N-Faculty to open up the bottom side. They got a kill on mid, and now they're looking for a dragon after the kill in the bottom lane. But here comes Morden. He's going to be too late though.
He was trying to get in range for a smite steal, didn't quite happen. N-Faculty pick up the first dragon of the game, and that was a nice gold swing, bringing that, basically equalizing a gold total. 400 gold in it is practically nothing. One kill will separate them and the one tower. So N-Faculty, considering the start of the game, in pretty good shape.
Yeah, they've really started to close the gap between the two, and that's one thing that when you look at N-Faculty's composition is going to benefit them, is that I feel like they have the better scaling with Kog'Maw if they can keep him alive.
And the flash and the flay from Rydell will bring Mountain in range. JWoww appears in the fight, did get the teleport down there. Mountain now by himself. This is a matter of who's going to pick up the kill. In fact, he will be home safe and dry. The same cannot be said for his AD carry of Cedric.
Indeed. That was the kill I think that GAMERS2 really needed at that point. They didn't want to let Kog'Maw sit in that lane too much. It's one of the dangers of playing against a Kog'Maw is if he gets too much free farm, he really will just turn into that late game monster that we've seen time and time again. And now Yuki's able to hammer down a little bit on this turret. Should actually get this.
Yeah, Yuki's got enough damage there. He's got enough minions to make that happen. Cedric only just come up from base. Looks like he's waiting for enough gold to finish off his Trinity Force, which he has just now completed. That gives Yuki the window of opportunity to take down that bottom turret. Sigu also comes across, did manage to take out that ward, and Elise maybe biting off a little more she can chew, especially with Morden coming into the fight. Just get the repel back down, and the command attack comes through. Rana comes into the fight, will be getting the grab onto Sigu, drags him out of range of the Arcano Pulse. And an interesting ultimate from Sigu will do some damage to Rydell, but the re-engage by Morden keeps him in range, takes him out again, and just flying all over the battlefield, but no casualties at the end of that fight.
Ocelot's been looking for a spot to use his ultimate at this point, but really hasn't found it. Nobody was quite low enough. Although it has heavy damage, you really need to hit more than one shot of that ultimate. And Ocelot just didn't feel comfortable in that situation, a little bit too hectic. But meanwhile, JWoww top lane, again, maintaining that lead he's got on that CS. And he's up 40 CS already on Lulu.
Now, it didn't seem to matter what N-Faculty are doing on the rest of the map. Great, you picked up some kills in the bottom lane. You picked up the dragon. You held the mid lane as well. But while all that's happening, JWoww's just farming away. He's pushing top lane. He's just going about his day and gradually picking up objectives. The 3-man push from GAMERS2 in the mid lane as well will secure this turret, and Sigu was low enough from the last brawl that he will not be able to do anything, and neither will Pronbear, who just gets decimated by JWoww. Stays in for a little bit too long.
I was waiting for a spot to say I don't think Pronbear can actually defend this turret, and he proved me very much so right. There's not really anybody right now that can take on JWoww 1v1, and that's going to open up the map for GAMERS2. They really are going to have an easy time here of just getting objectives around the map. You saw them take mid tower. Bot tower had already fallen as well. And the thing is now, JWoww has taken the inner tower from his lane. He's going to be able to put even more pressure on the map. He can roam around the remaining lanes, maybe even pressure out that inhibitor turret. And if one of those falls this early on in the game, that's a big, big thing to deal with.
And Faculty have been entirely choked of vision in that area as well. So even if they wanted to go for the 1v2, maybe collapse them with 3 players, maybe Sigu looking to chime in with the assist, they don't have any vision, so Morden might be there. Ocelot might be able to chime in with the right of the Arcane. You just don't have enough knowledge. Now there's one ward there coming out from Promber, but that's just simply not enough.
Interesting, we're seeing Cedrian actually go for the Trinity Force build that was more popular on previous iterations of the current patch. Previous patches.
Yeah.
Recently, we've seen a lot more of the higher scaling, perhaps, when you see either that Blade start or the Infinity Edge start, which has been probably the most consistent start on Cogmore recently. So interesting to see the Trinity Force as a first item come back onto Cedrian's Cogmore.
And of course, AD carry builds not as clean cut as they used to be. Mountain stands in the way of the culling. We'll be blocking all that up for Cedrian, but definitely changes per game, and definitely feels like Trinity Force is the way to go in this one. Prombear chose his face in mid lane because he doesn't want to go back to top lane. That's been a misery for him so far in this game. 50 farm behind, 4 deaths. A large portion of his current team's deaths is not having the best of games from Prombear.
Problem is, somebody has to go top. Otherwise, JWoww is actually just going to push that turret down.
He will. He is a force of nature. Over time, he will erode your turrets like the sea erodes mountains. Or cliffs. Something like that.
It's a good job they didn't lane swap, and Faculty would be already behind on that. But middle lane...
Mid lane, Morden comes, well, maybe not the place he wanted to kick him to, but it doesn't really matter because he's on that side of the wall and he's not getting over back to safety. I think he was expecting him to pin him to the wall rather than kick him all the way through. But either way, another pick to GAMERS2.
Yeah, I don't think they were quite expecting that. But in the end of the day, JWoww will be happy enough to land the damage and let the team follow up with that. And this is going to be a mid-turret going down here. They really have only just recalled the hook.
Prombear gets hooked. He gets pulled into the team. Meets the same fate as Sigu. Will be taken out. And the tower is now in rubble, in ruins in the mid lane. GAMERS2 just very slick with their map movements.
Yeah, really just point to point. Taking down objectives, and there's not too much right now that N Faculty can actually do about it. JWoww in the bush. Gets the ward. Now look to follow up. Flash out of Idle.
Yeah, doesn't manage to connect anything, in fact, and just whiffs all of his skill shots. Will that end up mattering? Yes, it will, because they don't secure any kills. Everyone has come back from base, and now the teleport comes out from Prombear as well, so they will be 5 versus 5 for the first time in this game. Are they strong enough to go for this fight? They will be taking down the dragon, so advantage already to GAMERS2. Prombear has been hugged, and Rye will be the first one to drop. GAMERS2 are completely split. JWoww will be jumping over, though Morton gets dragged back into the meat grinder of the team of N Faculty. Ocelot does have some damage, but not enough. Right of the Arcane only really tags 2 members. 3 deaths so far from GAMERS2. They pick up the dragon, but N Faculty with a good swing back and kills.
You saw right there the difference between AP Nidalee and this Bruiser AD Nidalee. JWoww jumped in and instantly regretted his decision. He took half of his health completely by surprise, and from there had to back out, and he is a lot of the damage right now on the GAMERS2 side, and the fact that N Faculty are running a Protect the X comp means that whoever JWoww goes on in a 5v5 is going to get a lot of protection in that situation. And to be honest, they didn't need to protect Cedrian at that point, because Cedrian isn't exactly dealing the late game damage that is the linchpin of the team. At this point, the rest of N Faculty are actually doing a significant amount of damage as well.
Cedrian is steadily accruing kills during these engagements as well. Yeah. He's the one to pick these up every now and again in these skirmishes, and that's something that's preying on the back of the minds of GAMERS2 at the moment. 7-9, so they have started to catch up in the kills, but it's the gold where it really matters. Still around 5,000 gold, just under that, maybe more towards 4,000 gold in advantage for GAMERS2. JWoww is in the wings, lands the auto attack. That's a lot of damage, and we'll get the wild growth. Knocks him back, knocks him into the air. Sigu was there just in case, and Mountain was around the corner if necessary, but JWoww didn't really burn any big summoners or big cooldowns and chunked from there and burns an ultimate.
Yeah, you can see how many people he drew up there as well. If Lulu's ultimate had been on cooldown from that fight, that really would have ended horribly for Lulu. But Pronbear did have that ultimate, kept himself alive. Now GAMERS2 going to go for that split push. This is what we were kind of talking about earlier in Champion Select. This is one of the strengths of JWoww's Nidalee, is nobody can duel Nidalee right now in a 4-on-1 situation.
Especially with that Trinity Force, the Hex Drinker as well, itemizing against his lane opponent. And the mid lane, they got double AP coming into the mix. And we were kind of questioning what the top laner and indeed Yuki was going to build into this game. Picked up the Infinity Edge, the Static Shift, so more of a traditional AD carry item build, so not deviating from the norm too much here.
Yeah, pretty standard just overall, but is in fact, saying that, it's no, we've seen the Infinity Edge on Lucian a couple of times. I'm pretty confident that this has been brought up because there was a lot of time that we actually just saw the Ghostblade build come out with the Blade of the Ruin King Ghostblade, but yeah, we've, as you mentioned earlier, not so clear cut on the old support, AD carry items. Sorry, my vision controls were going a little bit crazy there. So
fairly static. All these players congregated around the bottom area, and once again, Pronbear always drawn into this 1-versus-1 against JWoww. Definitely saying to his team, tag me out, guys. I want to join the rest of the team. Someone else can deal with this cat. JWoww just gradually taking down the minions, gradually poking away against Pronbear, and then the turret, chipping away at it piece by piece, but haven't made all that much headway, and Faculty have proven they're strong enough to keep themselves in the game, Eye of Destruction, or force Elise to come back. So, a lot of poke at the disposal of GAMERS2.
that is a lot of poke. You can see JWoww now even angling to come around the side now that he had Pronbear low, forced him away from that turret, and it's just going to be rinse and repeat here from GAMERS2. They are eventually going to get this turret unless Faculty can get a really nice engage.
Well, GAMERS2 don't have any prior appointments to attend, so they're quite happy to sit in the bot lane, wait for the minions to flood in, take a couple hundred hit points off the tower, rinse, repeat, and that's their game plan so far. They don't need to be doing anything Baron. They don't need to all go up there and go onto that objective. Zerv will be trying his best to land those cocoons, do as much as he can right of the arcane. Lands one, and not even sure where that one was heading, but a good culling will tag the back of Sigurd. Spears raining in from the side as well, and that was enough just to throw them and push them away from the turret with skill shots alone.
Yeah, just enough. Not anything particularly significant used there out of GAMERS2, just a couple of ultimates put onto the cooldown, but they're fairly short at this point anyway, so that's one of the strengths of that Xerath. As we said, very similar to Ziggs in the length of cooldowns, the actual in-game decisions that you make on Xerath, very similar to Ziggs. You just pretty much, I'm just going to wave clear and siege, and then, ult you from quite a way away.
Yep, and snipe you off the map. Ocelot, that's his objective so far, is on 2 items currently, farming probably as best as he can. Morden perhaps caught out, Living Artillery comes down, doesn't catch him on the final one, but this is a good return from Faculty, a good answer, taking down the middle turret, clearing out the minions. So in response, they do take a turret, maybe less valuable than the bottom inner turret, 6-1 currently, so they do find themselves in this game, but Faculty maybe getting a little bit desperate. Is this a desperation Baron? 25 minutes into the game, it would be very risky. It's going to be a no. This is placing down those wards, making sure they have the vision, the information, just in case GAMERS2 go for that themselves.
I was going to say, not only does it feel a little too early for them to go to that kind of level of desperation, but Cedrian wasn't with them either. So that would have been a horrific call. So thankfully, they weren't actually going for it. But Dragon is the call that has been made by GAMERS2, and they will take that without any real contest from Faculty. So that is the second Dragon of the game going to GAMERS2.
So Faculty are never really a team which make bold statements in games. They never really make the big plays, but what they do is have very good, I was going to say map vision, and then instantly Mountain gets picked off. So maybe not so good this game. They've had pretty good objective clear, but even stepping foot into their own jungle is a risk at that point. And 26 minutes into the game, that's not the situation you want to be in from End Faculty.
Yeah, it was a big risk. And to be honest, everything was a little bit clustered there in the jungle, and didn't even see the icon there of Mountain going in between the GAMERS2 players. Everything was a little bit overlapped, and you can see without the vision, GAMERS2 just pick up an easy kill in the jungle, and they have themselves about a 7,000 gold lead right now, and looks like Morden wants to back and spend some of it. Doesn't actually have that much to spend.
Well, Morden goes back. And he's the only member going back, so he really wanted to finish off an item. I guess seeing that nothing's going to happen in the immediate future, he got the pick. Mountain, still in high spirits apparently. Kind of goes with the champion, role-playing a little bit.
Yeah, just
always in a good mood.
Wants to stay happy there. But yeah, GAMERS2 did end up backing off from that completely. So obviously that was the time they chose to make sure they were all nice and safe, nice and itemized for the next fight. Look at the CS difference in that top lane. That is a pretty painful difference if you're Pronbear right now.
Yeah, 1 and 5 for 2 items completed, so he hasn't been completely removed from the game. But it's definitely not in the same position as JWoww, who's sitting pretty on a Trinity Force, more Man Mortius, the Merc Treads as well. And able to duel pretty much anyone on the team of End Faculty. Even his solo lane opponent is not even remotely able to stand toe-to-toe to JWoww right now.
I just don't know how you deal with this JWoww right now. If he goes to split push, you have to put somebody up against him. And you can see every time he's darting around this jungle on the map, you can see the reactions start to come out from End Faculty. They'll move people down towards where JWoww is, but then they remember, oh wait, the rest of GAMERS2 are going to be doing things on the map. And from there, it's pretty difficult to kind of divide your team up when you know that both parts of GAMERS2 are stronger than probably the sum of your parts.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty vague saying they're doing things on the rest of Summoner's Rift. But you're totally right, Stress. You have the solo lane pusher, you dedicate 2 members to that, then you go 3 versus 4 against a 4-man team who's probably stronger than your 4-man split push or rest of team. Then you just kind of lose on all fronts. And GAMERS2, they know this. They're twisting the screws right now. Again, the Javelin Toss comes through and Pronbear is left limping back to the spawn pad. But GAMERS2, they're just pressuring Baron. Not pressuring it too hard. Kind of a more gentle pressure. But they don't need to be all that aggressive. Mountain has been called out. Rydell is right on the front lines. And no one can even penetrate Rydell by himself. Pronbear will be taking some more damage himself. Teleporting into this fight. JWoww did follow him. Tries to get the execute, doesn't quite happen, but Rydell was the only casualty so far, and that's actually from GAMERS2. Can End Faculty completely disengage from this fight? Looks like the answer may be yes. Yuki goes in 1v3. That was maybe a little bit ambitious, but goes for the 1-for-1. And will be getting out, actually saves himself. Eye of Destruction comes down. JWoww actually nets the kill with a nice Javelin Toss over the wall. Ends for a 1 versus 2. Yuki, what a play.
You can see the extra mobility here that Lucian has in that fight. Was able to get a couple more Relentless Pursuits out from the fight, and that's going to open up a Baron here for GAMERS2. And I don't think there's nothing really that End Faculty can do here. They're too far away.
Yeah, that's going down very, very quickly. That's an extremely good Baron clear coming up from GAMERS2. Win the fight by that impressive play by Yuki. Well, Mountain finds the blue buff. Ocelot still wants it. Eye of Destruction. Rest of the Arcane, of course, is sure to follow. Rydell is there to support him just in case. Gets the Shocking Orb onto Mountain. Will be keeping him at bay. But that does mean the blue buff at least secured for End Faculty. A consolation prize, if anything else. Rydell tried his best to go for the steal of the hook.
I mean, I kind of not sure whether I like JWoww teleporting to that fight. I wonder whether GAMERS2 could have disengaged and just taken an inhibitor turret at that point. I mean, GAMERS2 undoubtedly came out ahead once Yuki put himself into the fight and really got damage going, but JWoww was doing such a good job against Pronbear that if the rest of GAMERS2 could disengage, it's possible that they could have ended up significantly further ahead, but of course they did get the Baron from that fight, so that really just, for JWoww, makes it incredibly easy to split push now.
Yeah, and in a different dimension, that may have been what happened, Stress. And you've got to wonder what would have happened. Because JWoww, Morden, Yuki, they probably would have gotten out and spoken about the mobility of all three of those champions. And Ocelot doesn't really have anything, so everyone just pieces out and it's like, guys, and then Ocelot dies.
He's
but
got
maybe
ghosts.
they picked up the inhibitor turret. Maybe would have gotten that. We won't be seeing that alternate dimension. But Yuki again will be picking up the red buff. Will we get tanked by the Winter's Bite from Mountain? Some poke over the wall, the Bio-Arcane Barrage through from Cedrian. Hurting, but not hurting enough for this game.
JWoww up in that top lane once again, and just going to have to get used to this out of GAMERS2. They are going to run this 4-on-1 again and again because it's working for them. Every time they do this, they end up getting some objective from this, and the next objectives they're going to get are inhibitor towers. And if they can get 2, if they can even get 1 here, it puts N-Faculty in a horrible position.
You can almost feel the pain from N-Faculty right now. It feels like a very frustrating game to play. From there, almost hitting the graveyard. Will not be taken down today, but had to use his ultimate. But it's just a split push from JWoww. The mobility from the rest of the team with GAMERS2. Towers fall left and right. You can never quite catch GAMERS2. You get one pick, everyone disengages, and you're not strong enough to pick up any more objectives in return. And JWoww is just going to town in top lane. Prombear not even able to do anything to stop JWoww. He's just going to go ahead and take their Nexus turrets. Those auto attacks are insane. Sigu comes in. 2 members dedicated up there, but that may be the window of opportunity GAMERS2 were looking for to go for their own engage. Not going to be the case. Lands the death sentence and will take the brunt of the culling as well. Elise will escape to the minions, but it's just poke after poke, skill shot. And one by one they have to return to base, and one by one N-Faculty lose their base.
And that's a horrible position to be in. I mean, the decision making there was they didn't want to lose 2 inhibitor towers, but they've lost an inhibitor and damage down onto the Nexus towers. It means that now JWoww is just going to push in, and they have to now put 2 people in that top lane. There's no way that they can defend with just 1 person because JWoww will pretty much eat them alive, and he will take the Nexus turret. He's just going to go straight onto Prombear.
Again, he will get a wild growth, keeping him alive. This time, Cedrian is there, following up with the living artilleries. Will be able to finish him off. Dodgeball time for JWoww, but that was 2 members committed to the top lane. Bot lane suffers some punishment. Ocelot has been caught out. A great flash. The Mountain will be landing the Glacial Fissure. Picks up 1. Rydal, will he be the second casualty of the fight? Morden lands the Q. Doesn't really want to be kicking the Mountain into the rest of his team. Yuki, meanwhile, very maneuverable. Rydal is taking the brunt of the damage. Meanwhile, on top lane does take some hits, but JWoww will be falling, so they did manage to win out in that eventually, but the fight has turned around from GAMERS2. Cedrian on the front lines now. The rest of his team a little bit too low to provide him the coverage he needs. And this fight may well fizzle out. Cedrian still on the hunt, however, Morden is getting chased down. Jump over the wall with the wall jump. Rydal saying, here's the fresh express if you need it. Not in the place he really wanted to go, though. I
didn't quite catch what happened to JWoww other than that he died to Prombear. I wasn't sure whether he was focusing on the Nexus towers. Perhaps you can see how low it dropped from that, and maybe Prombear just turned a lot of damage around from that. But GAMERS2 perhaps getting a little bit greedy there, looking for a quicker finish to that game.
Yeah, GAMERS2, I completely agree with you, Stress. You're getting a little bit ahead of themselves in this game. They're misjudging how far ahead they are. I mean, the 13,000 gold ahead, which is not a small number.
It's quite a way.
That's for certain.
It is quite a big number.
Six towers, 6 objectives over their counterparts of N-Faculty. But, yeah, N-Faculty still holding on. By the skin of their teeth, they are still stopping the onslaught from GAMERS2, which is a feat in itself. This is a best of 1, of course, so there is plenty more games in the group stage, but it won't be N-Faculty facing down GAMERS2 once again unless these guys find themselves in playoffs. So this is an important game for both of these guys, both of these teams. N-Faculty won't be giving this up without a fight, as they've demonstrated throughout this game so far.
I kind of feel like when we were at DreamHack, N-Faculty had insane dragon control. And we haven't seen it here. If I remember rightly, N-Faculty had games where they, even when behind, they were just on top of every single dragon, and they've not had any kind of control over that dragon ever since the very, very early game. And it's something that GAMERS2 have really relished on, that they've been given free objectives here and there consistently throughout the entire game.
Yeah, I agree. In Faculty, they picked up the first dragon, and then they were kind of put out of sync with the rest of the match. Like, the rest of the game, they were kind of left foot forwards and then fall over. Like, they didn't really put their right foot in the place it should have been. And in Faculty, the boat is sinking, and they're trying their best to bail out the water.
They're playing
duct tape over all the holes.
They're playing Quap.
They are. They are, in fact, playing Quap right now. They got the first step. They managed to get 2 meters into the race course. And unfortunately, we're not able to make it to the hurdle.
Here you go, though. It's 4v3 in the bottom lane. Culling has been used, and I mean, GAMERS2, they're dealing with a fair amount of wave clear with Orianna, but that will stop here.
They will. Mountain managed to take up a good portion of the culling from there, though. JWoww has just returned into this fight. Auto attacks doesn't even need the takedown. That's absurd damage so far coming out from JWoww. 4 items at the moment. He will be taking down his opponent. Now it's a 5 versus 4, and it wasn't even going well in the first place. That was not the best Glacial Fissure I have seen in my life stress to date. And Mountain is, well, he's still laughing. Cedrian 1v1 against JWoww will be coming out fairly equal. Both of these guys disengaged from the fight. But now it's just member after member leaving the bot lane. Mountain does get hooked by Rydell. Takes some more punishment by Yuki. But they are still holding on. Cedrian is approaching late game Cogmore. Does he have enough damage to keep them in the game? That's the question.
That is the question indeed. JWoww really looking to take down that Nexus turret. It has, however, regen quite a lot of health. So it's not the very low health Nexus tower that we saw earlier. Yuki may have been caught, though.
Lantern takes him back to Rydell. That's how far ahead they are. They can make mistakes like that, and Yuki can just return, come in with a relentless pursuit, and nuke down his opposition top lane. Did see some trade back and forth. JWoww again takes Prombear low enough. He was forced to use his ultimate 1 versus 1 between the AD carries. Yuki jumps back to safety, but Cedrian showing he is the stronger AD carry, in fact, despite the horrific game and horrific game state he's in. 1v1, a lot of punishment coming down.
Yeah, I mean, with 38 minutes into this game, so Cogmore has really started to hit that point where he is, you know, a very strong marksman. And interesting, GAMERS2 are really trying to force this out, like uncharacteristically aggressive, because Baron has spawned, and spawned a while ago, and they don't care.
Or do they need to care at the moment?
Oh my goodness, that pounce. To be honest, it makes this situation a whole lot easier for them, because if they get engaged on, could be bad.
Yep, they may have broken the shell, but the good response may pick up some kills in response. Mountain again does not connect the Glacial Fissure. Right of the Arcane will be hammering down onto Cedrian. Takes him low, but a good shield from Sigu will secure Mountain's life. Maybe not, though. He will be dropping Flaylands onto free. This is now a whitewash from N Faculty. Everyone has dropped top lane. The 1v1 was won out by JWoww, and just in time for the rest of the team to finish off the game.
Ooh, that was closer than GAMERS2 needed that to be. And I mean, they had the position and they'd been there for quite some time, but GAMERS2 didn't exactly make the end of that look that easy.
And 20 kills to 10. A lot of that was at the very end of the game. They managed to pick up all the rest of the objectives. And it looked precarious for the last couple of minutes of the game. It was kills exchanged back and forth. It was almost hitting that breaking point where Cedric might have enough damage. But they were definitely just lacking on all fronts. It was getting to the stage where they were just so far ahead in all departments that N Faculty were finding it hard to stay above water.
Indeed, and ended up sinking to GAMERS2. So they'll have to kind of recompose themselves, patch up the hull of the ship, get it seaworthy once again. I'll stop these now, because they have to go up against SK Gaming Prime next.
They do, and it's back-to-back performances, and having lost the first game, it's not going to put you in the best of morale states for the second one. Maybe an easiest opponent, they could say. SK Gaming Prime, of course, haven't had the best of performances, honestly, in the last couple of tournaments. They came in the top 4 in DreamHack, but in the rest of the tournaments, really just finished from 5th to 8th in a plethora of other tournaments. So, not performing as well as the team would have predicted. Every time you speak to them, it's like, yeah, we're probably going to take first, second spot, and always pip to the post.
Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit more when we return with our game. Make sure in the break that you head over to FACEIT.com, get yourself signed up on the platform, get yourself ready to play in the leagues and ladders and win some pretty awesome prizes as well. But when we return, it's going to be SK Gaming Prime going up against N Faculty for the FACEIT Challenge.